Growing up, my family had its problems, like many families, but we always kept up appearances. My grandfather appeared in my bedroom night after night, and the rest of the family appeared not to notice. So I grew up trying to look good on the outside, but carrying around a lot of secret shame on the inside. I wanted to disappear and become someone else. Well, when I was 20 years old, I had an opportunity to study abroad for a year through a college program. I decided to go to Tokyo, Japan, a place about as far away and different from my rural American hometown as possible. I always thought of Japan as a place that had a deep understanding of shame, so I thought maybe somehow I'm going to fit in there. Well, I arrive at Narita Airport, and I'm looking out over a sea of black hair. I'm 5'9", and this is a country where the average height is 5'7" for a man. Navigating in the narrow, crowded streets of Tokyo, I feel like a mattress, tiptoeing around, trying to go unnoticed. I learned just how subjective the notion of personal space could be. As part of my mission to assimilate, I moved in with a Japanese family that spoke very little English. I had studied the language before coming, but I was a long way from fluent, and it's not an easy language to get right. There are all these levels of politeness and different modes of speaking depending if you're a man or a woman. For example, if you want to say something's amazing in Japanese, the word is sugoi. Well, if you're a man, you can say sugee na. But if you're a woman, you have to say it more like sugoi wa ne. Well, I didn't feel all that comfortable talking to my hand that way, but I wanted to be as Japanese as possible, so I tried. I also studied the Japanese tea ceremony, a slow, precise ritual for making a cup of green tea. I learned that if you perform it just right, you disappear, and only the form remains. This being exactly what I was after, I earnestly applied myself to the lessons. By the end of the course, the instructor commented that I seemed more Japanese than her own daughter. What do you know? Origami Barbie. But despite my efforts to fit in, I was mostly seen as an outsider there. The word for outsider in Japanese is gaijin, and that's a word that was used interchangeably with my name, Susan. Some things felt familiar, though. I still got a lot of unwanted attention from men. I remember once the father of a friend asked me, "So do you have to wear a fur-lined bra to keep those big American breasts warm?" Or there was the man who approached me and asked me if he could have a single strand of my blonde hair. Really? No. Or the time I went back to the laundromat to get my clothes out of the dryer and discovered that every single pair of my underwear was missing. Or the men with the blank faces standing next to me on the packed subway train who would sometimes sneak a finger into the crotch of my pants, front or back. And to think I went halfway across the world to get away from all this. But as time went on and as I became more fluent in the language and culture, I happened to meet and fall in love with a Japanese man. He was several years older than I was. He was reserved and elegant. He had traveled internationally, so to him, I was a person, not gaijin. I felt seen for the first time. We spent the next few months swept up in our love affair, walking through exquisite gardens, holding hands in secret in the shadowy backseat of a cab. I once literally bowed at his feet in my devotion to him. And speaking of mattresses, we found our own little corner of heaven on his. I felt totally in his debt for loving me, and I wanted to be perfect for him. I remember once confessing to him about another mistake I'd made in navigating in his world, and he said to me, "Susan, keshite kawaranai de." Never change. But everything came to a sudden stop when I got pregnant. I didn't realize it at first, but reality had just dropped into my body like a stone. The relentless unbelonging wore on me day after day, and our relationship was all on his terms, his language, his culture. He proposed marriage, And for a little while, we moved forward with a plan to spend our lives together. But after all that time I had spent trying to erase myself and become someone else, something in me had suddenly woken up. And this little spark of life inside of me brought me home to myself so unexpectedly, almost against my own will. I guess you could say there already was a little girl inside of me that needed my care. So, after the most agonizing deliberation of my life, I decided to have an abortion. I remember the exact moment of my decision. It was like walking through an invisible doorway, and on the other side, the decision was made by a part of me I didn't even know existed. I was 20 years old. What did I know about regret? So he signed the permission slip. I underwent a very lonely procedure, and then I came home to the US to start this slow and real and necessary journey of finding out who I really was. I looked up the word mattress in the dictionary. Mattress, a large, thick pad filled with resilient material, often incorporating coiled springs. Large, thick? Okay. Resilient? Yeah. Coiled to spring? Definitely. I was one pissed-off survivor. That's as good a place to start as any. Thank you.